Hey guys, we're back out here on the silent air compressor. I did say it's totally silent in my video, but I guess as opposed to something, larger compressor out in your garage, or even some of the standard airbrush compressors like the Badger 180-11, which this is going to replace, is silent. It's really quiet, or apparently it's supposed to be. We'll see once we fire it up. This is the third video, and I did say we're going to do a little mock-up here. We went over parts in the previous video, and this is pretty much what they look like mocked up. The base plate here, the aluminum plate I did. Originally, what I was going to do was polish it for a little bling and, make it look really nice, and then anodize it. And it was too much work. I couldn't just polish it because it's going to oxidize again. And that would be a continuous process. So what I did was just decided to go ahead and just paint that with a texture finish. Kind of not really flat, but a texture finish. This is a compressor, and it kind of breaks up the shininess of this and that. And then you have a little bit of matte in there, so I thought that looked kind of good that way. This was the original compressor, obviously, that I showed you in the other video. It did look kind of nasty, and it had some rusty spots and stuff like that, and I figured if I'm going to do this project, I kind of wanted things to look nice. So I just did a little light sand on it and rattle canned it, and it came out pretty good. So what's going to happen here, I ended up having to countersink these holes here. I didn't have to do all three of them, but this one in particular, you could see where the mount for the back of the compressor is here, and it's very close to the screw, so the rubber damper was over the top of this. So that had to be flush. So I figured if I was going to countersink one, just in the interest of uniformity, I'd countersink them all. The screw here, as you can see, these are for the mounts. They are all tapped, all four of them coming through from the top. And that washer there is going to be over the top of the compressor damper on all four of these. And what I'm going to do is just run them down, pretty loose till it touches, and then just a little more, and I'll put some blue Loctite on there to keep them from backing out. So, there's some vibration dampening. These are all the fittings that I talked about. There's the 90 1/8" pipe thread. There's a check valve, and we come out to a 90 1/8" pipe thread to compression, then compression, and then that's the fitting that I didn't have the last time, and that top section is just going to come up here to this unloader. I haven't decided whether I'm going to use a plastic line on that or not to come back to the unloader. And then on this end right here, that's where the compressor connects right here. The only problem with doing this in all hard lines is I'm going to have to slide the compressor on and line it up on these fittings. So I'm not going to do that on camera. We're not going to assemble this thing on camera. But you can just basically see what I've done and where we're going with this. This is the unloader. It's a standard compressor unloader, like I showed in the parts procurement video. I ended up taking the original components apart for the regulator of the other compressor, because I wasn't going to use them. But I did need that safety valve. We'll come back around here on this side. And this is what it's going to look like on this side. I needed that nipple there, which is a 2-inch, because I needed to stand this off from the tank. I probably could have got away with a 1.5 inches, but I didn't want to take a chance. I've been to the store too many times. So I played it safe and got the 2. I probably could have drew that back in, another 1/2 inch, probably not worth it. I had to buy the adapter here for the hose. All my airbrush hoses are adapted down so they can just plug into this. This is the original regulator / moisture trap from my 180-11. So I took the gauges off of the compressor, the Harbor Freight, and put them in here. To install this 1/8, obviously, on this regulator here, or this pressure switch, I had to get a reducer, which was a 1/8 inch pipe to 1/4 pipe. And then just screwed that in and put the gauge in. And this was pretty much already set up from my Harbor Freight, not my Harbor Freight, but my Badger compressor. So we can go down to these parts here. This is just the back side of the housing for the wiring that goes, that pretty much goes here. I just cleaned it up and painted it again, so you know it's kind of nasty looking, and just cleaned that off with vinegar, stainless steel, so cleaned up really good. What I'm going to end up doing with this line here is this going to get cut. This is the actual servicing port, and this is what I'm going to use for putting oil in this thing. And what it's going to get is a 90 compression, and then I'm going to cap it with a compression cap. So when I need to put oil in this thing, I'm hoping it's going to vacuum it in. But you know, we'll see. Either way, I hear that's, you know, you want to, that's where you want to service these motors, not from the actual vacuum line, because you can lock this thing up. I haven't drained the oil out of this yet. I did have a little bit spilled, stupid me, but it's probably about maybe a 1/2 ounce. So when I drain everything out of this line here, I'm just going to turn the thing upside down and let all the oil come out. Then I'll just add another little taste in there when I service it up. And we'll see how much oil comes out. This is polyester-based oil in these refrigerator compressors. So you don't need that anymore because we're not using refrigerant. That's the main reason for using that stuff, I think, so it doesn't react with, you know, the actual gas. And it can suspend itself, you know, out. So you can use regular compressor oil. I've heard of people using mineral oil or whatever, but I'm going to use regular compressor oil with that. And then hopefully, if any is actually blowing through, it's going to pick this up in this moisture trap. So over a period of time, I'll keep track of that. And we'll see how much oil accumulates in there. Hopefully it's going to keep it in here and, you know, not come out of the air. This is the tubing cutter I ended up using. Don't try using the big one, or you're gonna have to try to like totally straighten these lines out of this compressor. This is lines that ended up getting cut off. I apologize in the first video. I said, you know, this was hard. This line right here was hard. Very hard aluminum, and they're steel. And they're brazed. And even the aluminum to aluminum on this thing for your vacuum ports are brazed. So you're not going to be able to get them apart unless you have a acetylene or a MAP gas with a, you know, special head. And I wasn't looking to go do that. You remember me talking about that thread sealant in my first video on how difficult it was to remove. You can see that stuff here. Oh my God, this stuff is like bulletproof, and you have to heat this up to get these off. And some of it actually broke off of here. There's a big glob of it that was on the end, and beware. Get some heat on this to remove and take any of these things apart. So there's a piece of the sealant right here. Just a little bit of it. And it's hard as a rock. Very hard. So take that for what it's worth. So these are the spacers. I had to drill them out so that these 6mm screws would fit. Wasn't a big deal. And once we get this all together, you'll see how this is going to go, which is up here. The rubber damper, and that washer's on top of the damper itself. So it just, you know, it holds the compressor in place. I was able to reuse this strain relief from the Harbor Freight compressor. So I just attached it to this with super glue. I put a couple of wraps of electrical tape on there to take up a little bit of slack, and then super glued that in there. So that slides right into there. It's like perfect. I can't believe it. I don't even think they have strain relief on this on the original freezer. I don't remember when I took it apart. I recommend you use brass fittings for everything. This is, if I can get this to focus there, what happens to steel and water. And there's always water and compressed air. Unless you use a dryer, these fittings are going to corrode. Or they're actually not, that's not corrosion, it's rust. When you get a little bit of corrosion or oxidation, you're going to get it on aluminum, brass, your non-ferrous metals, but steel rust, and it comes apart. And this hole here was starting to close up. So in compressors, I will recommend, if you're not using an air dryer, to stay away from steel. I mean, brass is going to oxidize, but it's not going to do what that steel does. And this came out of, this fitting was out of my Badger compressor. So I had no idea it looked like that until I took it apart and, you know, swapped that moisture trap out and regulator. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. So lesson learned, brass. That's why you see it on most compressors. It's on my big boy over there, and I have a bunch of compressors in here. I guess I hoard too much stuff. Got to get rid of it, but all the compressors, you know, the fittings are either copper or, you know, in the brass and then plastic. I'm not sure whether I mentioned what I'm going to do with this unloader. I'm not sure, but I need to come off of this T back up here to that unloader up there. I could use a high pressure plastic line, or maybe I could end up bending something with this this copper tubing, but I don't have a tubing bender, so I'm not too sure what I'm going to do with that. I want it to look neat, so I'll see what I can come up with. I haven't decided whether I'm going to offset this handle or not, because originally it's there. I'm going to have to offset it back to this side, or I may just leave it like it is, and just use it mainly for, you know, support and carrying, because this thing's not going to get moved hardly ever. Once I put it up, you know, at my little workstation, and then that's going to be another project. I'm going to build a table for models and building models and things. So I may make a video on it, maybe not. We'll see. But in a nutshell, that's how everything's going together. I did forget to mention one thing, and that is the cords going into here. They're just rubber grommets. They do provide 2 screws down here where you can clamp them. I don't think that I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do, I had a bunch of these strain reliefs left over from my CNC machine. We're still going to get back to that. I still got to get back on that thing, but we're not going to talk about that right now. That'll be my next project. We'll finish those videos up and get that running. But I think I'm going to use these an actual real strain relief for those fittings. Not for the fittings, but for the cords. I did make this one, like I said, and just put new spade connectors on there, and heat shrink. And this is the thermal protection. This is the thing that stops a compressor from turning back on, or if it overheats, like when you unplug a refrigerator and then you plug it back on, and you notice it takes like 5 minutes for it to come back on. That's what that is, and it just plugs in right there. But it's all set to go, and those wires are going to probably end up coming underneath here like this and back around, and most likely in here, and then I'll put either the cord here, but I really don't want it in the way of the regulator, so maybe I'll put the power cord back this way and just run that up and around into here. And then I believe the lower step is your line voltage. Let's see if that focuses. I hope. There we go. And then the top is your load. So in the next video, you should see this thing back together. I still have to drain the oil out of here, see how much is in it. And like I said, I'm going to replace it, and I'll let you know. So if you do this, you'll probably want to take that polyester oil out and just run regular compressor oil. I don't think you want to mix those two. They're totally different. Totally different. It's like trying to mix turbine or jet turbine oil with reciprocating engine oil. No, you can't do that. So I'm going to treat that like that. So we'll finish this up. Hopefully on the next video, everything will be all complete. We'll run it. We'll hook an airbrush up to it. See how long it takes to pump and get to pressure. And we'll run it for a little bit, and I think this should be able to handle running an airbrush continuously with no problems. It's going to take a while to drain this tank, so we'll see what happens. Thanks for watching.